Hi. Sorry, my computer is ancient, so I have to do it like this. What is an amphibious vehicle? Amphibious vehicle is a vehicle for transporting passengers and cargo that can operate on land and in water. An amphibious vehicle, or simply amphibian, is a vehicle that is a means of transport viable on land and on or underwater. When was the first amphibious car made? In 1961, its designer, Hans Trippel, teamed up with the Quint Group to begin manufacturing the first and only mass-produced consumer-available amphibious vehicle. The Amphicar 770 Ishak states that it had a 15.5-foot-long body and it weighed around 1,738 pounds. So what is an amphibious vehicle and what are some pros and cons? Amphibious vehicles include amphibious bicycles, ATVs, cars, buses, trucks, railway vehicles, combat vehicles, and hovercraft. First, why was the Amphicar first created? It was originally designed as a Nazi war vehicle in World War II. The idea was to have an automobile that could seamlessly transition from roads to water, which would theoretically increase troops' mobility on the battlefield. According to All That's Interesting, Natasha Ishak, only 200 models were produced. According to Natasha, only 200 models were produced. After the war in 1961, its designer, Hans Trippel, began manufacturing the first and only mass-produced consumer-available amphibious vehicle. Same stats, the Amphicar 770, 15.5 body length and 1738 in pounds. To drive it from the streets and into the water, its steel unibody had double seals on the doors that could be activated by pulling a lever, preventing the amphibious car from taking on water. At that time, it cost a whopping $2,800. Roughly 90% of its total sales were in America, with the remaining 10% split between Germany and the UK. At one point, President Lyndon B. Johnson owned an Amphicar and routinely used it to prank guests at Camp David. Second, here are some advantages or pros of the Amphicar. This is President Lyndon B. Johnson in his car. They are easy to launch, safer to launch. They're beach landers. They're simple to store, they're easy to maintain, and they are economical. No trailers or cars are needed to launch. Parking fees or vehicles or trailers. They store on land and this reduces wear and tear. And you can park your boat directly in front of your house or garden. Amphibious vehicles with tracks enable you to drive directly on land. Thus, you are able to embark on any type of terrain, removing the requirement for infrastructure or dinghies. Also, amphibious vehicles enable you to board directly from dry land safely. You could safely put children in there, disabled or elderly guests with no worries. Okay, so I grew up with boats, so this is a little funny to me. Old people, kids, everything. We're so used to skiffs, lunds. We have an 18-foot lund. I'm so used to boating. They're called skiffs. On here I mentioned dinghies. Dinghies are smaller than skiffs. So it goes like rowboat, dinghy. Oh wait, I forgot. Canoe. So kayak, canoe, rowboat, dinghy. Because dinghies sometimes have motors. Skiff. And then boat or fishing vessel or bigger boats, like hooded wagon, stuff like that. That's how my mom always called them, a hooded wagon. Anyways, okay, lastly, here are some of the cons of the amphibious car. Much like flying cars, so this is a amphicar with tracks, not tires. It has tracks. Much like flying cars, amphibious vehicles are sort of a curio in the automotive world. We have the technology to make them a reality, but they but have they ever been widely available? Can you still buy one? I'm not sure. If you could, is there even a market for such a thing? As it turns out, there is an answer to all three of them. I think Elon Musk is working on them. I found a website. Here is a new model with tracks sold online. This is also from that website. It has tracks. Unfortunately, the gimmick that made the Amphicar a niche hit with some buyers wasn't enough to convince the general populace to take the plunge. It goes without saying that since it was the only mass-produced amphibious car in the history of the industry, major automakers weren't too keen on the idea either. Fear not, though. If you're determined to drive off the pier without wrecking your car, you could still find somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 Amphicar in America, like on iguanayachts.com. That's where I got those boats with tracks, the pictures. Although, when I looked a little closer, they might be photoshopped. The people looked photoshopped. You're coming across a lot of scam websites. But here's another one. In conclusion, the Amphicar was a short-lived amphibious car that enjoyed a brief moment in the spotlight, but it never became mainstream among drivers. The failure of the Amphicar was brought on by several contributing factors. First, the infrastructure needed to support the amphibious car's unique capabilities simply did not exist. In order for the driver of the Amphicar to launch their vehicle into the water, there needed to be sufficient space, like a proper ramp. These kinds of systems were limited. It was 1961, so there probably wasn't as many ramps. They used gravel back then. Now we have really thick concrete for ramps. This is an Amphicar right here, docked on the shore of Lake Constance in Baden-Württemberg, Germany. I don't know how to say that. Right there. You see the gravel. I don't know if you've ever been to a boat launch. Then there was the amphibious car's confusing identity. While the water riding vehicle enjoyed some degree of attention due to its dual function, the marketing for it was unclear. For personal owned cars or water boats or amphibious cars, personally owned. The model messaging may have cost an Amphicar potential customers. Though compact, the Amphicar was also a high-maintenance automobile. After 5 hours in the water, the engine needed to be greased, which could only be done by lifting the entire car and taking out the rear seats. Exposure to salt water made it vulnerable to erosion, so it needed to be frequently cleaned thoroughly with fresh water. So what is an amphibious vehicle and what are the pros and cons? An amphibious vehicle, or simply an amphibian, is a vehicle that is the means of transport available on land or as well as though it's over 50 years now since the last Amphicar was made, these unique vehicles continue to charm collectors. Perhaps this quirky car that turns into a boat could still inspire an amphibious vehicle revolution. I would love one. Not joking, I would love one. And you can still take a ride in a duck boat in many places like Seattle, Washington, or Washington, D.C. This is James Bond car in the background, electric. Elon Musk bought it. I tried to ride the duck boats twice, once in Washington, D.C., and also in Seattle, Washington, but they always end up switching it on me. I ended up having to ride on the locking docks, which is pretty cool. You go to this dock and it fills it with water and it lifts the boat up. Instead of going down, you get lifted up. I wanted to go on the duck boat because there's the duck boat, ride the ducks. And you drive in Seattle, Washington, and in Washington, D.C., you drive it on land, drive it all over, and then you go into the water. Really wanted to. References. The many benefits of amphibious vehicles, iguanayachts.com, and then the fascinating story of the first amphibious car. That's the newswheel.com. And then the Amphicar, the rise and fall of the amphibious car, all that's interesting.com. I hope you enjoyed my presentation. So glad we are close to being done.